I still remember the way Jake looked at me that night. The way his lips twisted, not in sadness, not in guilt, but in a smug, condescending kind of certainty. The kind that cuts deeper than 1,000 cruel words. Ava, he sighed, like I was a burden he'd carried too long. You're sweet, really. But I need more stability. You know. I blinked. We'd been together for 3 years. Built everything from scratch. Shared frozen pizzas when rent was tight. Took weekend road trips in my dented Honda Civic, laughing when the AC gave out. And now he was leaving me for her. Brittany Sinclair. Trust fund girl. Instagram influencer. Daddy's yacht, designer purses, and brunch selfies. Are you saying you're leaving me because I don't have money? I asked, my voice cracking. I didn't want it to, but it did. He didn't even flinch. I'm just thinking about my future. Translation. I'm not part of it. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just stood there as he packed up the last of his things. He took the record player. We bought it together and walked out like he was stepping into a better life. The next week, I saw them together. Jake and Brittany. Smiling like they'd never known struggle. Meanwhile, I was working 2 shifts at a diner, my feet blistered, trying to hold back tears every time I wiped down a table. But something inside me hardened that week. A seed planted by pain, watered by humiliation. I didn't know how or when, but one day, I swore, I'd make him regret ever thinking I wasn't enough. It started with silence. Not the kind that brings peace, but the kind that leaves you hyper-aware of everything. I'd gotten good at avoiding any mention of Adam, especially after he left me so coldly. But life has a funny way of not letting you forget. One afternoon, I walked into a cafe just off 9th and Willow, a place I hadn't been to in months. It used to be our place. Back when money was tight but dreams were wide. I didn't mean to walk in. It just happened. My hands were cold from the outside air, but my chest burned. I ordered my coffee like muscle memory. Almond milk, no sugar, extra hot, and waited near the window, eyes drifting across people's faces. That's when I saw it. A girl, maybe in her mid-20s, blonde extensions, designer sunglasses on top of her head, arguing with someone over the phone. Her voice was high-pitched, frustrated. I wouldn't have cared, except she mentioned a name that sliced through the noise. Adam said he'd cover it, he promised, she snapped. I froze. A coincidence? Could be. But I turned slightly, just enough to glance again. She had on a Cartier bracelet I'd once seen in an ad. Ridiculously expensive, flaunty. Adam always hated flashy things. Or so I thought. Maybe his tastes changed with his new status. Or maybe that's what she expected of him now. I left the cafe quickly, coffee untouched. The next clue came a few days later. My phone buzzed at midnight, an Instagram notification. Someone tagged me in an old photo from our university days. It was from my friend Marcy. She had posted a throwback with the caption, "When we thought ramen and cheap wine was the peak of life's goal." I smiled at first, until I scrolled through the comments. And there he was. Adam Evans _89. Some people peak too early. A chill ran through me. Was that directed at me? Was he even following my friends? Why was he still watching my orbit? I clicked his profile. Private. Of course. But the bio had changed. CEO, investor, building empires briefcase. Building empires? Funny. When we were together, he couldn't even build a proper resume. The more I read, the more bizarre it felt. His captions were filled with cryptic digs, luxury hashtags, and motivational quotes. It didn't feel like him. It felt like a costume. A poorly stitched one. I couldn't sleep that night. The paranoia crept in slowly. I started noticing little overlaps. His posts echoed things I had said to him in the past. Stay humble, stay hungry. That was my mantra, not his. He once laughed at me for writing it on a sticky note above my desk. Now it was his bio quote. I started digging not because I cared about him, but because something didn't add up. You see, when someone leaves you for money, they usually don't come back to haunt your digital space unless something's off. At brunch with my friend Tanya the following week, I brought it up casually. You ever get the feeling someone's watching you? She arched a brow. Like in real life or online? Tanya set down her mimosa. You mean Adam? I paused. Why would you say that? She looked guilty. Because he DM'd me. What? When? Last week. I didn't reply. I thought it was weird. He just said, how's she doing? I assumed he meant you. My stomach dropped. He was asking about me now. That wasn't just curiosity. That was guilt. Or maybe regret. Either way, it meant I was in his head. It was strange. At work, I had been flourishing. I had just secured my first round of investor funding for my tech startup. I'd moved into a loft that once lived on my Pinterest boards. I was getting invites to speak at panels, collaborations, podcasts. I was finally seen, respected. For years, I had been underestimated, especially by Adam. He used to call my ideas cute and idealistic. Said I'd never survive in the real world. But I wasn't just surviving, I was finally thriving. And yet, every sign pointed to Adam watching from afar. The final straw came when I got a call from a blocked number. Hello. I answered, expecting it to be spam. Hey, it's me. The voice was unmistakable. Adam. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, he said. I let the silence stretch. I've been thinking about you. Still, I said nothing. You look great, he continued, nervous now. I saw the interview you did with Wired. The whole AI sustainability angle, brilliant. I blinked. He'd watched that? He cleared his throat. Listen, I know I screwed up. I wanted to say I'm proud of you. That word, proud, landed like a bruise. He had never been proud of me before. I could have hung up. I should have hung up. But instead, I said, why now? A pause. Because I made a mistake. And I've been pretending I didn't. But the truth is, I left something real for something hollow. And I can't unfeel that. There it was. Suspicion confirmed. He wasn't doing well. He might have been surrounded by designer lives and hollow laughs, but deep down, he missed the one thing money couldn't buy. Me. After that call, everything shifted. The power dynamic reversed. I wasn't the abandoned one anymore. I was the ghost he couldn't stop chasing. And while I didn't know what came next, I knew this. He left me for someone richer. But now I was living the dream, and he was just another chapter in my origin story. A reminder of who I used to be and who I'd never become again. I had always imagined the moment I'd run into Liam again. Maybe we'd pass each other in an airport terminal, or I'd see him at a party, him stunned, me radiant in a designer dress, effortlessly successful. But reality, as always, had its own flair for drama. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. I had just stepped out of my car in front of a new co-working space I'd launched downtown, a converted Art Deco building wrapped in glass and ambition. I was juggling my coffee, a leather folio, and my umbrella when I saw him. Liam, hair damp from the drizzle, standing beside a faded silver Corolla, clearly waiting for someone. My heart stuttered. It wasn't longing, not anymore. It was the jolt of recognition mixed with disbelief. His shoulders were slumped, clothes slightly wrinkled, and there was an expression on his face I couldn't quite decode until his eyes met mine. I froze. He recognized me instantly. There was no mistaking the widening of his eyes, the way his jaw clenched like a reflex. But more than that, there was something else, something closer to shame. He took a cautious step forward. Isabella? The sound of his voice sent a ripple through me. That name had once been sacred on his lips. Now it was just a ghost. I nodded, forcing a calmness I wasn't sure I felt. Yes, Liam. He looked awkward, as if he didn't know what to do with his hands. He finally shoved them in his jacket pockets. I didn't think I'd ever see you again, he said. I smiled, calm and unbothered. Most people who discard gold don't expect to find it shining brighter than ever. The sting in my words was intentional. He chuckled awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, I know things ended badly. Badly? He ghosted me after 5 years, leaving nothing but a note and a trail of Instagram photos with someone new, Amanda. Wealthy, Surgically polished Amanda, who had clearly been in the picture long before I found out. I raised an eyebrow. Is that what you're calling it? He hesitated, then sighed. I made mistakes. Big ones. Amanda and it didn't last. There it was. The first admission. I heard. I replied casually. I had, of course. The whispers floated around the same circles we used to share. Amanda's business went bankrupt. Her assets were tied up in legal battles. Liam had moved into a one-bedroom apartment 2 cities over. It was poetic, really. But he didn't know what I'd become. I had built a luxury wellness brand from scratch. Sleepless nights, endless rejections, blood and sweat. And now, my face was on magazine covers. I was in meetings with investors who once ignored my emails. I didn't just survive. I flourished. And now here he was. Small. Uncertain. Standing in the rain as I stepped into a building with my name on the deed. I'm working for a consultancy now, he added quickly, as if trying to reclaim some dignity. Helping startups. My lips curved. That's funny. I own a few. I stepped closer. In fact, I'm interviewing a few consultants this week. You wouldn't happen to know. His face changed. Embarrassment bloomed, tinged with regret. You're joking, he said. Not even a little. I handed him my card. But don't worry, I'm not in the habit of hiring people who lack vision. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. He looked like someone who just realized they'd traded diamonds for dust. I never thought you'd go this far, he said finally. I mean, you used to doubt yourself so much. I looked him straight in the eye. That's what happens when you stop tying your worth to someone else's opinion. The weight of the moment hit him. He was trying to find something, some way to undo the consequences of his choices. But the truth was laid bare between us. I had soared, and he had sunk. And deep down, he knew it. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, he added, quieter now. For everything. For not believing in you. It landed like a feather, not a bomb. I had already grieved that version of myself, and the man who betrayed her. What remained now was power. And peace. I gave him a long, silent look, then finally said, "Thank you." "For what?" he asked. "For leaving." I turned and walked toward the glass doors of my building. As I stepped through them, a concierge greeted me with a smile, and my assistant handed me a schedule. I didn't glance back, because the truth had already been written into the moment. He left me for someone richer. And now, I was the dream he would never touch again. That truth was mine, and I wore it like a crown. I didn't expect to run into him again, especially not like this. But fate, as cruel and poetic as ever, always has perfect timing. It was at a luxury fundraising gala hosted by the investment firm I had just partnered with. The same firm he used to rave about, the one he said would never take someone like me seriously. I was wearing a custom-designed evening gown, the kind of outfit I once used to see in storefronts and tell myself was for other people. Now it was mine. I had earned it. I was networking, laughing politely, sipping champagne, when I felt the unmistakable weight of a stare burning into my back. I turned around slowly. There he was. Ethan. Same jawline. Same suit preference. But gone was the confident smirk he used to wear like a crown. Now there was something else in his eyes. Shock. Hesitation. Regret? He approached with a careful smile, like someone stepping onto thin ice. "Wow," he said, trying to sound casual. "You look incredible." I nodded once, coolly. "Thanks." Silence stretched awkwardly between us. I could feel it tightening like a rope, around his pride, around my resolve. He cleared his throat. "I didn't know you were connected to this firm." "You didn't know a lot of things," I replied, my voice even. His eyes dropped for a second. "I listen about what happened." I raised my hand gently, like a conductor pausing a misplaced note in a symphony. "You don't need to explain, Ethan. You made your choice." He looked uncomfortable. I thought she and I wanted the same things. We were building something. Or so I believed. Ah. So the cracks had finally spread. "Still together?" I asked, genuinely curious. His face told me everything before his mouth could.
No.
It didn't work out. I sipped my drink and let that hang in the air. He tried to laugh it off. She was more interested in my potential than in me. And when things got tough, she got gone. Poetic justice. She always seemed like someone who wanted the dream, not the journey, I said. He looked up sharply, catching the edge in my tone. You're right, he said quietly. And I guess I didn't see that back then. I didn't see you clearly either. There it was, the regret. The one thing I never thought I'd live long enough to witness from him. I was in a different place, he continued. Back then, I thought success looked a certain way. Money, appearances, fast results. I didn't realize that true value doesn't come prepackaged in designer labels. I leaned in slightly. No, it doesn't. It comes in quiet sacrifices, sleepless nights, and the kind of resilience you don't learn from comfort. He nodded, eyes cast downward. I judged you unfairly. I thought you'd never make it. And now, here you are. And where are you? I asked, not out of spite, but curiosity. He gave a tight smile. Back to square one. Trying to restart my career. Actually, I've been interviewing, including at the firm you're now partnered with. That stopped me. He looked up slowly. I didn't know you were on the board. I guess it'll be your call. A strange silence wrapped around us, almost holy in its weight. You know, I said, voice calm and laced with bittersweet irony. For years I replayed what you said to me. That I was a dreamer. That I didn't have the drive. That I'd never make it without someone like you. He winced. I was an idiot. You were, I said plainly. But I needed you to say it. Your rejection pushed me harder than any motivational speech ever could. He looked genuinely pained. I'm sorry. I nodded. I'm not. He blinked. You're not. No. Because everything you took from me, every piece of confidence you chipped away, I rebuilt myself. Stronger. Smarter. Hungrier. Without you, I wouldn't have become this version of me. He stood there, exposed in his own ruin, while I stood in the light of everything I had earned. A waiter passed by, and I placed my empty glass on the tray. If you get the job, I won't stand in your way. But don't expect special treatment. He straightened a little. Of course. But, I added, my voice razor-sharp now, if you ever speak down to another woman like you did to me, if you ever decide someone's worth by their bank account or background, I will make sure that's the last time you underestimate someone in this industry. He swallowed hard. Understood. I turned to leave. Just as I stepped away, he said quietly, You really are living the dream now, huh? I paused, looked over my shoulder, and replied, No, I'm building bigger ones. And then I walked away. Not from pain. Not from bitterness. But from the last remnants of a chapter one had already outgrown. I didn't plan for the moment to happen the way it did. But sometimes life writes better plot twists than fiction. The new office was sleek, glass walls, ergonomic chairs, the scent of fresh polish and ambition in the air. I had just signed the lease. My startup, once run from my cramped apartment, had outgrown its shell. We were scaling fast. I was hiring. And we needed talent. That's when his resume landed on my desk. I didn't recognize the name at first. I almost skipped it. But the cover letter caught my attention. It was professional, humble, desperate almost. And then I saw it. The name at the top. David Kernan. My old boss. The man who once stood across from me, arms crossed, telling me I'd never make it outside his system. I stared at the paper for a full minute. Then I leaned back, exhaled sharply, and laughed. There it was. Full circle. 2 weeks later, we invited a batch of candidates for final interviews. I made sure to be there, seated at the head of the glass conference table, when he walked in. David looked older. Not just in the way people age, but in the way people wear failure on their shoulders. He walked in with a slight hesitation, like he wasn't sure if he belonged. His eyes scanned the room, and the moment they landed on me, time froze. He blinked once. Then again. Confusion gave way to recognition. Then disbelief. Then shame. "Mr. Hale," he said, voice thin. I stood slowly. "David, please have a seat." The others in the room watched silently. They didn't know the history, but they felt something charged passing between us. He sat, adjusting his tie. I wasn't aware you were the founder," I said, tilting my head. "Yeah. Built it after you fired me." A flicker of red bloomed in his face. "That wasn't personal." "It felt personal when you said I was too ambitious for my own good and not cut out for leadership." I leaned forward. "Ring any bells?" He shifted in his seat. "I was wrong." I let that hang there for a moment. There was a fragile honesty in his voice that almost softened me. Almost. The interview went on. I kept it professional. He answered questions well. Decades of experience, polished language, but the spark was missing. The confidence he once had been dulled. After the others had left, I told my team I wanted a private word with him. He lingered behind, hands nervously clasped in front of him. "You know," I began, "I used to replay our last meeting in my head. That day you let me go. Over and over. Not because I doubted myself, but because I wanted to remember the way you looked at me. Like I was a liability." He didn't meet my eyes. "I'm not here to shame you," I continued. "Actually, I want to thank you." He looked up, surprised. "Getting fired pushed me to take a risk I might have never taken. You closed one door and handed me the key to another." "I didn't mean to break you down," he said, voice cracking slightly. "I thought I was being realistic. I thought maybe if I knocked you down early, you wouldn't get hurt worse later." A long pause followed. "Do you want the job?" I asked quietly. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. "I need the job." That sentence stayed with me longer than I expected. "You'll be reporting to someone younger than you," I said plainly. "You'll be expected to unlearn some of the methods you thought were gospel. This company's culture doesn't run on ego." He nodded, eyes misty. "And for what it's worth," I added, "you'll be treated better here than you ever treated me." He didn't say a word, just nodded again, swallowing hard. I offered my hand. He took it. And in that moment, everything I had once felt, anger, humiliation, the ache of rejection, transformed into something else entirely. Power, not in the sense of control, but in the quiet knowing that I had risen, not in spite of what he did, but because of it. The office door closed behind him, and I stood there for a long time, staring at the seat where he had just sat. Not in gloating, not in revenge, but in closure. Because I had made it. He always said money would bring happiness. That love without stability was nothing more than a gamble. But here I was, sitting on the balcony of my penthouse overlooking the city skyline, sipping from a glass of imported wine that cost more than he once made in a week. Alone, yes, but not lonely, not broken, not empty. Ever since the confrontation, I hadn't heard a word from him. Not a message, not a call. Just digital silence. A void. At first, I thought it was over, truly over, and I could finally place that chapter in the archive of lessons learned. But I was wrong. One night, while attending a charity gala for young women in tech, an initiative I helped fund, I saw his name in the list of attendees. I blinked 3 times just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. What was he doing at an event filled with entrepreneurs and visionaries? He used to scoff at my dreams. He once told me coding was just a phase, like painting your nails black in high school. And then I saw him. Not across the room, not hidden in the crowd. He was behind the wine bar, serving. My heart slammed into my ribs. He wore a pressed black uniform, sleeves rolled up, hands trembling slightly as he poured wine for guests who didn't even glance at him. I didn't move toward him. I didn't even blink. I simply stood there, one hand at my side, and let the gravity of the moment wrap around me like velvet. This was the fallout. He left me because he believed she had more status, more cash, more pull. And maybe she did. For a while. But power built on shallow foundations always caves in. From what little I'd heard, she had dumped him within a year. Left him in debt. Took his car, his pride, and whatever was left of his illusions. I walked away that night without speaking a word to him. That was my revenge, my existence, my success, my serenity. But life wasn't done twisting. A week later, I received a letter. A handwritten one. From him. I saw you. You didn't even flinch. That hurt more than any slap could have. I thought I'd feel something when I saw you. Regret, maybe shame. But what I felt most was awe. You've become everything I mocked. Everything I said you couldn't be. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say you were right to let me go. I didn't respond. I had nothing left to say. But what followed chilled me deeper than any heartbreak had. One of my employees, Marla, a fresh grad I had mentored personally, came to my office a few days later. Her hands were trembling as she spoke. I didn't know until he showed me. He came to the office. Said he had unfinished business. He left this. It was a flash drive. I hesitated before plugging it in. Something in my gut told me this wasn't a love letter. Inside was a single file, a video. I clicked play. It was a screen recording. My private messages, my emails, my bank logins. He had been watching me. From the day he left, he'd been tracking me. Not always maliciously at first, more like obsession. But somewhere along the way, curiosity morphed into resentment, into desperation, into theft. The final clip on the video was a shaky recording from outside my apartment, months ago. Late at night, my silhouette visible through the window, moving inside. I pulled the flash drive out immediately. My heart pounded so hard, I thought I might faint. He had been watching me all along. Everything I'd built, everything I thought I had risen above, it had a shadow trailing it. I filed a report, strengthened my security, moved temporarily into a private residence while I sorted everything out. My team was on high alert. But here's the thing that truly shook me. For all my success, all my accolades, all the walls I'd climbed, this man, this ghost from my past, had still found a way to violate the very thing I thought was untouchable, my peace. And yet he lost. Because I didn't break. Because I didn't hide. Because I kept building. A month later, I gave a TED Talk titled, From Rejection to Reinvention. I spoke about heartbreak, about betrayal, about what happens when people laugh at your dreams, about rising anyway. The clip went viral. It was everywhere. Millions watched. Millions saw the transformation. I didn't mention his name once. I didn't need to. And then, just when I thought the past had fully settled, my phone buzzed with an anonymous message. You always win, don't you? But it's not over. I stared at the screen, the light casting a faint glow over my face. I deleted the message. Then I looked out my window again, into the night that once haunted me. And I smiled, not out of victory, not out of smugness, but because I finally understood. Winning isn't about revenge. It's about freedom. Freedom from their words. Freedom from their grip. Freedom from needing their apology. Final shocking sentence. He left me thinking I'd be nothing without him, but now I realize I was always everything without him.